Hello everyone, and welcome to the next video in the Python's fundamental series. This video will focus on strings. Strings might be the most common data type in Python. Honestly, it might be the most common data type of all times in all languages, but we're going to spend a good amount of time in this video going over everything about strings. I would try to keep these videos under between 30 to an hour each. If we get into about 30 minutes, I kind of see where we are in these videos, and I might decide to have part twos. So part twos and videos are pretty much I wasn't able to finish, and I just wanted to cover it in a second video, so the videos won't be super long. All right, let's get on it. All right, so starting. What is a string? A string is just a bunch of characters. It's like letters. Strings are made up of characters. Like your name is characters. Characters are made up of either letters or special characters like pound sign or dollar sign and so forth. So starting off, we're gonna just create a string, and I'm gonna just create a string of my name. So we're gonna call the string name, which is the variable that I want to assign it to. And then we're going to use double quotes to open it up, and then we'll create it Michael A. Hamilton. So that's my name. You can use your name for this example, but I'm going to use my name. Alright, so if I do shift enter, it stores it, and it tells you some information about it over here. So the name is name, it's a string, and it has 18. That means that there is 18 characters, including white spaces, that make up this name. So that's the size. So if you count it, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18. So that's the size of the string. Now there are 4 ways to create a string. I'm gonna show you all 4 now. So what if we broke up my name into its parts, first name, middle name, and last name, and then I'm gonna recreate the name argument just using the 4th type. So the first way, we'll say f names is equal to my first name, which you've already done. That's quotes, Michael. So quotes is a way to set up a string. If I do m name, which is my middle name, I'm gonna use single quotes. I'm gonna say Andre, which is my middle name, and then my last name, I'm gonna do L name, and then I'm going to use triple quotes. So triple single quotes is one way. So if you do 3 and then do 1 more, it should bring up 6 quotes, and in between the 3 quotes you can write it. So I'll say Hamilton, and I'm gonna hit delete because I don't want no space. Remember, space is an actual character, it's a special character. So if you don't want a space in your name, you're gonna have to make sure you remove the space, at least for this first version. I hit shift enter. My last name was built, and then the last way is let me put a hashtag so we can tell what section of the code we are in. Alright, so in the last way to create it, which is I'm gonna recreate the name argument at the top. Its name is equal, and it's triple double quotes, 1 2 3, then 1 more, so you get triple double quotes, and then you can say Michael Andre Hamilton. I'm gonna hit delete because I don't want no space, and now I've changed my name. So now we have the 4 ways to use set up strings, assign strings to variables. These are the only 4 ways that I know of. These are the 4 ways I use. That here. All right. If you wanted to say you had like a string called yo, and you want it to be able to be like yo 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 yo, to actually keep repeating that string over and over. If you create that, you can do that by multiplying a string. So the multiple of a string just means create multiple versions of a string. So I'm gonna call it yell. So if I say yell is equal to yo, like that, like yo. In this case, I'm gonna put a space after it because I know I'm gonna multiply it. So if I go down here and say y yell multiplied by 5 and do shift enter, says Yale is not defined. Oh, I forgot to shift enter this. This error, I like to talk about it. It says name error. Yale is not defined. So what that means that Yale is not stored in memory. So when you see this error, you should first look over here and see if you see Yale. Because I don't see Yale, that means I didn't hit shift enter or hit run this line to let the computer know that this variable exists. So I'll go back up here and do shift enter. Now Yale shows up. So now when I do shift enter here, you see yo 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 yo. So that's what I was talking about, how the multiply, when you use the multiply sign on a string, it just multiplies the string. If you had some type of thing where you needed to do like a yo yo yo, you don't have to create strings that does that. You can just do it. So that's good. Again, say if you didn't know, if you didn't have the GUI system, you want to know how big the size was. So like for instance, name now is 22 because I spelled out my last name. If I do length and then pass in name and then press shift enter, you'll see it returns back 22. So it returns back what you see here in the GUI. And you remember in the last video we talked about how to get the type. So its type will return back as a string as well. So when you index, so that's the general, pretty much that's all you need to know about instantiating a string and getting the size of a string and how to get a string to repeat itself using the multiply sign. Sorry, I'm just wanting things to look a little even. Alright, so next thing I want to talk about is indexing strings. So when you index through strings, like string indexing like we did in lists and stuff, indexing strings are what they call iterable. They're iterable. They are iterable objects, which means that you can go through that. You can set up a for loop, a while loop, or some type of looping structure to it, in which that every round it will return data back for you. So strings is considered an iterable. Now what it iterates is characters. So every round, every index, every value has a character index, and that character index is based on the strings, its position within the string. So for instance, let me I'm going to pull up Paint. You know me, I like to talk about this before I get too deep. So say for instance we have a string called name, right? Name is equal to just say if it was equal to Michael, in quotes. Now to the computer it's more like this. So like I'm gonna make this block, and on this side I have the elements. So M I C H A E L. Okay. All right. So we have I C. Disregard how well I write, because I am using my mouse to do all this writing. So its index position, we'll call it, is 0 index, and this is like the item number. This is kind of how I see everything. So the index for 0, so 0 is indexed in the 0 when you're not, M is in the 0 position, I is in the 1 position, C is in the 2 position, the 3 position, the 4 position, the 5 position, and the 6 position. So Michael is 7 character longs because I don't have any spaces, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then so it's 7 characters long because 0 is the first position. So in the 0 position, M is the first item. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you want to return the first item, you have to pass the 0 index. When you started in Python, this concept of indexing, you really have to get locked into. I think a lot of mistakes happen when you don't understand how to do the indexing. This layout kind of works both for lists, dictionary, anything that uses indexes. You just got to understand from the computer perspective how everything works. So when I have a string, regardless if it wasn't Michael, I always know that if I want to get the C, and if it's the third letter in the item list, which in this case C is the third letter in the item list, its index to return it would be 2. So if we go back to code, minimize paint, I have, yep, the elf name is Michael. Elf name is identical to what we have here. It says that it's a string. It says that it has 7 items in it, and then its index is 0 to 6. So if we go back, you'll see it's a string. It has 7 items in the index, and if I want to get each letter independently, I have to go 0 to 6. So let's print out each letter of the first name. Again, the first letter would be in the 0th position. So I open up brackets, I put 0, and then I do shift enter, and as you see, it returns back an M, because M 0, again back in the paint situation, M is in the 0th position. It's if index is 0, but it's the first item. 0th index, first item. So hopefully that explains kind of, you know, on paper how that system works together. So if I do elf name 1, and then I do 1 for each letter, just for this small example, so you'll have it. 1, 2, 4, 6, delete 1, 8, and then I'm gonna do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would give me the M, then the I, just look down here, and the 2 give me this C, the H, the A, the E, and the L. So that is how you access different elements of the string in Python. So you can always get the last element by knowing what the length is, about -1. So we know index is 6 is for the last element. Another way is to get the last element is pass in the length function, which will actually be 7 minus 1. So passing in 6 or passing in the length function of first name, which means that this function, we did it earlier, if I run this line here, shift enter, it's gonna, oh, not elf name, let me do it down here so you can see it. If I do length of elf name, you see it gives me a 7. This function returns a 7, so this is going to return the number 7. So I say -1, it's going to give me L as well, just like 6. Elf name 6 also gives me L, because they're both doing the same thing. This is the number 6, this is the number 7 minus 6, because this returns back a 7. So this is a way that you can get the last element in a list using the tradition, you know, the old school way. Now, you know, in Python, you also can get the last element by passing in a -1. So if I do elf -1, that's also going to bring me to L. So if you know the number 6, yes, you pass it in. If you don't know, you want the last element, you see how many elements in the list, -1 will give you the last element, or you can use the -1 away, and that will also give you the last element in the list. So those are the classical ways of going through the list. You do have the ability to do slicing. I'm going to type string slicing. So remember, this is like if I want to get a set of letters or a set of objects, elements. You remember, again, because it's a string iterable, all of these are considered item numbers, items. Or sometimes this is referred to as elements, like this section. Sometimes this section is referred to as elements. If I want to get, you know, 3 elements or 2 elements, that's called slicing. Say if I want MIC, right? We know that's position 0 to 2. When you slice, though, the first number that you add is inclusive. The second number is not inclusive, which means that you have to put the next number in to get those first 3 letters. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you in code, then I'll show you kind of graphically. So if I want to just get MIC back, I will type in the object name, and then I open the bracket. Then I put in whatever the M position, which is 0. The M is in the 0th position. C is 0, 1, 2. It's in the second position. But because the second number of this function is exclusive, which means that it only gonna give you back letters that are one less than that number. So if I want to get 0, 1, and 2, which is MIC, I have to put a 3 here instead of a 2. If I put a 3, I get MIC. If I said F name 0:2, I get MI, because reason why is because we go back to Paint. In that indexing system with the colon, this number N is what they call inclusive. It includes, N includes the index you put. This number X is exclusive. So this number is not included, so it includes everything that comes up to it. So when I put a 3 here, it's going to include 0, 1, and 2. When I put the 2 here, it only includes 0 and 1 because 2 is not included in what's in the second number here. So that's how slicing works, and this is true not just for strings, but this will be true for all data types. Slicing can be done to most of the different data types. So this is true for all iterable data types. So that includes lists, dictionaries, tuples, all of those types of data types. Okay, so let's continue. Say if you wanted to get the end of a name, like just say if let's say for a last name, say we only wanted to return back LTON. So if I look at it, all I need to know is the first position number, and if I put the colon and don't put any number in the second position, it will give me back all the letters that are after it. So for instance, Hamilton, H is in the 0, A is in the first, M is in the second, L is in the third, and T is in the fourth. So I can check that based on what I see. L name 4 should return back an L, and it does. So if I want to return back everything after the L, all I have to do is say L name open bracket 4 colon, and it's going to start at L and give me everything after it. So if I do this, you get LTON, which is 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, a 7th position, but there's a length of 8. So if you do, you know, just to make sure you understand it. So if you do put a 5 as the starting object, it's going to give you back TON. So it's like bingo, you know, B-E-I-N-G-O, B-E-I-N-G-O. If you want to keep leaving a letter off, you just keep moving down the line. So that's kind of how that system works. You can use negative. So say if I said -5, let's just show you what it does, and it will make sense once you see it. So -5 is going to start from the bottom and give you 5 back. So if we do -5, that's going to give me ILTON. So what it did, it started at the N, which is N, and then it went back. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0 is the first element, 1 is the second element, 2 is the third element, 3 is the fourth element, and 4 is the fifth element, remember? So -5 is going to give you 5 positions back starting at 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5. So that'll be ILTON. Is what's returned. Right now I'm just trying to think of other options. I think that's pretty much all you need to kind of know about slicing. You can slice going backwards, you can slice going forward. That's pretty much what you need to know for this at the moment. All right, say if you had created a variable and now you realize you don't need it, so you want to actually delete it. To delete most objects, there's a special key for it. So we're going to delete one of these. We'll go ahead and just delete the full name one, we'll delete Yale, because Yale don't really match the rest of the naming structure I have up here. So all you have to do is the keyword DLE. It comes up purple. It's a keyword, and the name of the function. So if I say Yale and shift enter, you'll see it remove itself. So what that means, not only it got rid of it, it released it. So it's not just hanging. It emptied the pointer location. So now that memory location is reaccessible. The data that was used to hold that piece of data in memory has now been freed back to RAM, random access memory, to be used by the project, or used by something else that actually needs memory at the moment. So that's gotten rid of it. Strings. Another big thing that you do with strings is what they call string concatenation. Concatenation. I call it concat, or but it's pretty much the word of just me taking two and putting them together. So say if I wanted it to print out, I wanted a string that printed out Andre Hamilton, but I didn't use this one. I wanted to use the parts to bring it out. I can concat all of these three together and get it to print out Michael Hamilton. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I create a print statement, right? If I print F name and press enter, it's going to do Michael, right? But if I go up here and add just let me write this down. So this is string concatenation. All right, make sure. I'm doing this because I'm assuming you're going to write along with me, and I just want to make sure that when you reread your code, you kind of know what I was talking about during that phrase. All right, so we have the first name, right? Well, what if we wanted to say first, middle, and last? All we have to do is, and you can store variables. I'm using the print because I just want to see it on the screen. But anything that can be printed, you can use the concatenation to store it and create a new variable. So if I wanted to, you know what, that actually make more sense. Let's do that. So we're going to create a new variable that has the names together. So I'm going to call it concat names is equal to first name plus middle name plus last name, and then you do shift enter here, and you'll see it did the same thing, except it just did it all together, because you remember spaces are characters, and then because we don't have any characters in between our names, no space characters, it didn't know what to do with it. So if we want it to look like this, all we have to do is make sure that we go ahead and add the spaces. So the plus is a special character for strings, so I can create strings inside here. So what I want to do, I need a space after this plus, and I need a space after this plus. So with the space, I'm gonna open quotes, two quotes, and just put a space. That space is going to be added. So now it's saying first name plus this open space, then I need another plus, second name plus, and I'm gonna open space here, then plus this. So what you're doing, you're adding strings. So remember, these variables are just representations of these strings we created. So I don't have a variable that is a quote with an open space, but I just created the open space. So now all you have to do is rerun it now. And now if you look up here, this string now is identical to our name string. Since I added the actual spaces, so now they look the same. So this is what we call string concatenation. Let's see, what's the next thing? I see we're now at 24 minutes. The last thing I want to cover in this part of the video is how do you loop through strings, and then how do you see if the string is part of a membership. And what that means is that, does that string exist, does it exist within the format of, does that string or that piece of string, is it true or false, that I'm trying to check, does it exist or does it not exist? Okay, let's go through those. All right, so first, we're going to talk about string looping. The looping through strings of, I'm going to say, because it's the Python's fundamentals course, we're going to focus on like one of the most common loop types, which is the for loop. I'm going to probably not talk much about the other loops unless I create my own video about different looping structures in Python. But the for loop is the one I think you need to understand the most inside of this construct of Python. And in general, there's like 4 ways to like loop. Oh, no, it ain't. There's 3 ways to loop that I think are the most common. So when you create a for loop, it's always going to be the keyword for. Then you're going to have, I'll type it, then you're going to have some variable that you name, and that name is anything you want it to be. But inside the indentation of the block, that name is what's going to be used when you try to do things with that object. So in this one, I want to call the name for, let's use value. I use val a lot. For the value in the string, let's say elf name, colon, it does the indentation. All I want to do with it right now is just print it out and kind of show you how the loop system works. I also want to print just a string of dots here so you can see every time when it actually goes to a loop. So what a for loop does, it's just going to keep looping until this is empty. So if we run this line of code, if you see down here, the first time it went through the loop, it printed out an M. The second time an I. The second time a C, a H, a A, a E, and a L. So that's one way to loop through strings. So maybe there's something you want to do to it, and we're not going to get into it in this video. But say you wanted to loop to it, and you get the M, and you wanted to add like a smiley face to it or something. You can do that, or add extra letters real time during the loop, or use that letter to do something else. Maybe I need to take that letter and combine it with another letter of another string and create a new string. So but step 1, you just need to learn how to get access to every element, iterable element within that data type. And the iterable element in these data types of strings are characters. All right. The second way to do it, you can use the enumerate. What I like about the enumerate way is that we haven't talked about tuples, but what it does, it'll create what they call an index to value pair within a tuple, which is a good thing because a lot of times you might want to index, mess with objects by index, or you actually want to just fool with the variable. A lot of times when I'm messing with objects by index, that means I actually might want to change something about what's happening in the position of that object, like what that index of that object is pointing to. I might want to actually change that part. But if I just want to see the values and pop them out, I could use the first one I just gave you for that. But sometimes you want the index, and that's what the enumerate function does. It's a function that's tied to an iterable, and when it enumerates through it, it actually gives you what they call a tuple pair, which the first number represents the index position, and the second number represents the object or the variable you're trying to do. So what I'm gonna do with that one, I'm just gonna copy it and put it here. And I'm gonna put this little dot 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 so your code, I'll separate these so you'll know they're different. And the only difference I'm going to do is I'm going to add enumerate in front. It's a keyword, so it's ENUMER. There it is, T, and then I'm gonna put this in that object. So that's the only change between this and this. But watch what it prints out when I make that change. So if I shift enter, now you'll see this in parentheses is called a tuple. A tuple is a data type that we'll discuss later. Just all of a sudden, just know it's another type, another container type, not data type. It's a container type. Is it a container type, or is it a? No, it's a container type. I think they're called container types. It's a way to hold data, and it hold it. You can access the data by indexes, but in the end, you get these 2 values back. So that means value that's being put in this position is actually a tuple that has information at position 0 and information at position 1. So a lot of times in terms of, for me personally, instead of having to do val, open bracket, 0 if I want the index, or 1, I tend to use double assignments for this. So since it's enumerate, it returns 2 numbers. And like we talked about multiple assignments in the last video, I use multiple assignments. So I prefer this like this. I'm gonna copy this one more time here. Let me show you this. If you hold Shift Tab, it'll bring everything back one. That's something you'll need a lot. Instead of value, I would say index, comma, val. So that what this is doing, this is going to assign the first number to the index number and the second number to val. So inside here, when I print out, I need to say index, val. So it'll print the index one first one, then it'll print the val one next. So this should print out the same thing as this prints out, except the difference is that the access, the way I'm accessing the data per loop is different. And this is my preferred way to access the data if indexing of the object is important to me. If accessing just the data in the objects, like maybe I need to sum that stuff and I wanted to create my own little custom sum function, I just need the actual values, and I would probably choose this method for the string to access the values. Or if I was using the value, which is the characters, as some type of gate system, like you can't come, if it's the letter M you can do something, but if it's the letter C you can't. You just need the values of each character through the loop. So if I print this out, it should, yep, it gives me the same numbers, except now it's not in a tuple. Now the index holds the first numbers, and then the space is given because we're using the print command. When you use print and then put comma, the comma represents a separation, and how Python does it, it makes that separation with a space. And then the second number, val, here is it's the last number. I want to make this, because this is the last thing I'm probably going to cover in this. I got one more thing. So if I were to print this a little different and say print the index is, comma, index, and if I were to create this and say the value is, this is very important stuff to really understand, because these concepts don't change. They stay throughout the language, and honestly, as you get better at Python, the better you know your basics, the better it is to move forward. So when I run this now, the same thing. I had an indentation. This is a problem. You see how it's not indented correctly? It's giving me an error about the indentions. Hit backspace. These got to be in line to say that they're all in the same level of this function. So when I go here, control enter, now you see the index is 0, the value is M. That was the first loop. Then it starts the second loop. Now the index is 1, the value is I. The index is 2, the value is 6, 3. Index is 3, the value is H. So forth. This whole index value thing is pretty much identical to this thing I drew, where I have value is here, but the index of the value is here. So, the value is M, but the index is 0. The value, second position, is 1, but the index for it is I, but the index is 1. So that's the same concept that's actually going on in this section here. Yep, and the last thing is about memberships. That's the last thing I wanted to cover. So for its memberships, go back. You're trying to see if a string, if that string in that order and that size exists in this case exists within the name. And the one I'm going to use is the first one, the con name string we made. I want to use that as the string we're going to look for memberships. So like, you want to know if Michael is in this string, if the word Michael is in the string, and it'll give you true or false. So let's type in string membership. That's what the N function does, the N keyword. String memberships. So if we want to say, I'm gonna type the string. I'm not going to use. I'm gonna say Michael in con name. If I do shift enter, not that. All right. If I do shift enter, it says true. Like, you can set this up as an argument. If Michael is in con name, true, right? Because Michael does exist. But it doesn't have to be the whole name. It's looking for that pattern. Say if I copied this and said if Mitch is in con name, it's going to say yes, because Mitch is part of Michael. So I just want you to make sure it's not looking for a whole name, it's looking for character patterns. So if I go here and say shift enter, it's going to say true, because MIC exists, A and D exists. You know what I'm saying? But if I say something like if Andrea instead of Andre, ANDREA, is in con name, and press shift enter, it's going to say false because of that A. That A does not exist. This word does not exist in this phrase. But if I delete that A, it would definitely say it's true, because Andre does exist, so it's true. So membership, that's all memberships does. A lot of times you'll use memberships in some type of statement. You know, you might say if, you know, Michael in con name, colon, if that's true, you know, print, you know, yes. So if I were to do this, this is an if statement. It checks, it's a control structure. See, if this is true, this is just an example. If this is true, print yes. So when it runs, it prints yes, because it goes through, it checks this condition. This condition here is true. So this is true, do this. Else would be what you do if it wasn't true. So that's why I print yes. If Michael is in here, yes, it will print yes. All right, so I think this is a good stopping point for this video. Let's do a mini recap. So we talked about instantiating strings, right? We talked about the different ways to do it: the double quotes, the single quotes, the triple single quotes, and the triple double quotes. We talked about that you can use the multiply operator to repeat strings. So we showed the example with yo yo yo. We talked about the construct of how you iterate through strings, how the position and the index relationship, where the position is 0 indexed. So the first item, which is in the first item position, is at the 0th index. So we went through and walked through that here. We talked about the different ways of slicing. You can use -1. Negative numbers take you to the back of the list. Positives go from the front of the list. When you use traditional slicing like this, the index in the front position is inclusive. The index in the back position is exclusive, which means that you have to ensure that if those items you want, you got to go +1 index to ensure that they're going to be there. If you use a number inclusive index and just a colon, it'll give you not only the object at the index that it looks at, but going forward as well. It'll get all the objects after that as well. And if you want to go backwards, it starts at the back number and then go backwards to that object as well. So it includes this too. These are both inclusive. It'll start at index position, the last position is 0, and then it goes up 5 and includes the 5th number. We talked about deleting an object. So this deletes, this actually deletes an object out of memory, releases that memory back for further use later. We talked about string concatenation, where you can combine strings, and then we talked about looping, where we have the traditional loops that loops through the values. We have these enumerate loops that if you just give one variable, it returns a tuple, or you can multi-assign variables on the enumerate, and it'll pass the first variable the index number and the second variable the value number. And then lastly, we talked about string memberships, using strings to identify if it's true or not, if that pattern or that pattern of characters that you present exist in that order within the string. That's what it's doing. It's trying to look for that pattern and stuff like that. So that covers the part 1 of strings. As I see, that will be a part 1 and a part 2 at least. So happy programming, and until next time, I hope you enjoy yourself. Take care.